Hold on, I feel like I have to burp. Sorry. I have to eliminate that before we start. Okay.
Yay, we've all done it. We're fine.
I'm Meg Carney, an outdoor and environmental journalist, and this is the Outdoor Minimalist Podcast. Thank you for joining us so that together we can create a better outdoor space as we recreate.
Today we're doing something a little bit different, but hopefully equally as fun. We just watched the documentary called Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy. It's currently available on Netflix. Highly recommend, but be warned, it may fill you with a deep despair. Okay.
So much despair. Yay.
So just as a brief overview, the documentary basically looks at the hidden forces behind our consumer culture and the psychology of shopping. So in this video, after I made these guys watch the full film with me, we're going to break down some of our key takeaways and discuss how it connects to sustainability, minimalism, and the way we interact with all of the stuff that we buy. To get a little bit more background about the movie, I do recommend everyone watches it, so I'm not going to give like a full synopsis overview, but I want to mention a few things. So there is an AI personality that talks to you throughout the film named Sasha, and she breaks down 5 pillars: sell more, waste more, lie more, hide more, and control more. Those are like the 5 ways that, I guess, Sasha, the AI Siri being in the movie, is outlining for companies. Like, if you want to make a profit, these are the 5 things that you should do. And then it has like the interviews stacked into that to explain why this might be a little bit bad.
Mm-hmm. Being framed as like a dystopian corporate how-to video.
Yes. Yeah, basically. And I guess I don't really know how to explain it outside of that. We can just maybe do...
Well, I mean, if you're looking to break down the video itself, I mean, those 5 steps, I mean, that's, I feel like, a good way to do that. Okay. I mean, because those are the main points. The sell more, obviously, that's something they want to do to, bolster profits. And then it shows all the shitty things they do to do that. I mean, I feel like that's the easiest way to cover it.
Okay.
Yeah, like the video or the documentary is set up like a how to manipulate and like the consumer experience. Like it's almost like a corporate informational video of how to do all these horrible things, but then it's interjected with like people who've been in the industry, like who are now out of the industry, saying like don't do these things.
Mm-hmm.
So to start, initial film reactions, just basis reactions.
It was a lot of disparaging information thrown at you from all different sectors of consumerism, like different areas of, clothing and food and electronics, and just a lot of, not eye-opening because it's things you know about, but like when you see it, with all the footage, it's just
kind of puts it into perspective.
It's very depressing. There's a lot of terrible things that they show, and it was not a great time.
Yeah, they matched that very bleak information with equally enthusiastic imagery too. And Sasha comes off as kind of evil, like video game AI kind of evil. It's kind of creepy, actually.
Creepy is a good word. It was a creepy documentary.
I have a feeling that's what they were going for. A creep factor.
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, it's unsettling information, so why not frame it in an unsettling way?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The voice is very unnatural and very like Siri or Alexa sounding.
So let's talk a little bit about maybe some critiques that you had of the film.
Like the production?
Sure, we can start with production if you want. You're production kind of guys. So
right.
Why not start there?
I thought it was very well produced. I mean, I don't know if that's a critique really, feel like they really took a lot of inspiration from Wall-E. I put wallifying visuals because it is kind of like how they constructed this garbage planet. That was, I mean, maybe effective in showing how much shit we throw away. Of like, hey, here's Paris and buried in garbage, and the Eiffel Tower is just like peeking out.
Yeah.
It got a little much because they kind of leaned on that a lot.
Yeah, the AI imagery did not do it for me. There's a lot of AI imagery in the documentary to like show and kind of exaggerate the amount of consumer waste, and which in small batches is great, but it's like a bulk of the B-roll footage, and it kind of I think it would have been more impactful if they would have shown more like honest, realistic depictions of the waste, which they do in the back half of the film. And so the back half worked way more than the first half for me.
And I feel like as shocking as like the images of actual waste in the world were in that, they were a little downplayed by the fake images of way more garbage than that. So you're like, oh, it can't be that bad.
Yeah, I feel like it under the I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to exaggerate the amount of things, right?
I think that they were trying to put it in perspective.
Yeah, I don't think they were exaggerating.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I feel like it kind of, what Alex just said, it kind of undermines the reality of it. And the reality enough when you see, when you watch it, it's enough to make an impact.
I think they could have done it really effectively if they would have started with the images of actual waste, and then to help us visualize the amount of waste, then yeah, show me Paris buried, show me the entirety of Tokyo covered in garbage. Like, that seems like it would have been maybe more effective.
Yeah, instead of like showing the largest amount first and then showing the actual amount, because then, yeah, like you said, it's underwhelming. So one of the biggest critiques after the film came out was people were like, why is a film that is talking about environmental impact using AI? So the director did release a statement, and she said, quote, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding around the whole thing. We didn't actually use any AI. And that surprised me because I also thought the images were AI generated. And
they just animated them?
Yeah, she said, let me get to the other quote. This is another quote from the Compost Creative, which is the studio responsible for the visual effects. The only AI used in it at all was actual generation of the voice. So Sasha's voice was the only AI. And I wrote the script for the voice, right? And then we used an AI just to say the words. So that bit is AI. Everything else is artists. Very good, very hardworking artists. So I think the artists were probably given the instructions to make it look like AI sure. Because that Sasha was supposed to be AI.
That
but
is
I also
shocking because
thought
it definitely looks like the AI aesthetic throughout.
It does
80% of the film, which for me on like something like this topic that is like very like it's something this serious, you know, having that art style again undermines the seriousness of it, I think, because you have like the fake AI look, but then you have people talking about very serious things, and it's like the tone is weird, you know, between the guests who are giving their life story about how, you know, they helped progress these horrible trends, and you know there's remorse there, and there's like we got to do better, and there's footage of real beaches and oceans full of plastic and clothes and garbage, but then in the next scene it's like here's a whole bunch of cute cat videos that we threw in, or they're talking about like in electronic goods how wasteful you know the manufacturing is with planned obsolescence, But as they're telling you about this, the imagery is like these cute dog TikToks that are playing over the message. And so it's just it's a weird tone that goes back and forth.
I feel like to the videos being interjected, I feel like that was their play on the fifth pillar of control, of distracting you from reality. So the documentary did it too. Like, oh, we're going to distract you from the bleakness. Here's a cat and a dog. And,
especially because Sasha was the one introducing it, being like, oh, here's now a 9.8 second.
And I feel like that was maybe just a contextualized element of that pillar.
And that very, very well may be.
But it didn't do it for you.
Just because, like, this is not something that we should, like, be overly satirical about. Like, it's like, we don't have the time to, like, softball pitch you this information.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
That was another one of the big critiques. So I did look online, like, what were people saying on IMDb and Reddit and all those things. And one of the biggest one was the AI controversy that we discussed, and then mixed tone about a serious topic that was presented too lightly. So like a few reviewers, they felt the same way you did about the visual style, that the tone didn't match the seriousness of the issues. It was too playful, it was too stylized, and they distilled a complex topic a little too much, which was my biggest complaint, is that it wasn't detailed enough.
Yeah, I think on your note about not being detailed enough, some of the interviewees and the people talking about their journeys through being in the upper echelon of consumerism, whether it be Adidas or Amazon, and then having these realizations and moving out of that, I think you could have just made... The documentary is very broad as a whole. And so you have these like really great guests or interviewees who were like on the inside. And so it could have just been more focused on like those journeys, like entirely, versus like a broad overview of the problem.
I feel like those interviewees kind of got caped a little bit in that, even though like, hey, we spent multiple decades ruining the world. And then they very briefly said, yeah, no, I contributed to that at the end. But it's like, they make them sound like, oh, because I know I'm good. Like they didn't do a lot of the damage themselves. And I mean, not that they aren't remorseful, but it made them seem a little bit more environmentally conscious than they probably actually are.
Oh my gosh, you know who it reminds me of? It's in The Handmaid's Tale, so not the perfect comparison, but it's that one of the architects of Gilead, where afterwards he kind of joins the resistance.
Okay,
when he literally created...
Well, I'm not done with that show, so calm down.
Sorry. If you've seen that show...
I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. Commander Lawrence, I'm pretty sure it's who you're talking about.
It is Commander Lawrence. Sorry if any spoilers there, Alex. Okay.
No, I figured him.
I just...
That's what it reminded me of, though.
Yeah, to that point, like there's a good section of the film is dedicated to someone who worked for Amazon creating the clickbait, one-click shopping epidemic that has affected every single human being's life. And then somewhere along the line, there was a realization that like change needs to be made. And I feel like, again, with the critique about it was too broad. Like she talks about Amazon workers banding together to like invoke change, but it would have been nice to know like what were the specific things you were looking to change? Like what did you see from the inside that was like detrimental, that caused you to move in that direction, you know? Like
I feel like she greenwashed herself.
Yeah, what were your plans for the cardboard? What were your plans for the shipping? What were your plans for the the plastic that everything's wrapped in, bubble wrap?
I think I think it started out as just a demanding that the Amazon board take some sort of action.
Yeah.
That it wasn't necessarily, here's my plan.
No, I understand that.
It was just like, do something.
But there could have just, I feel like, and that was just an example. It could have gone for everything, you know. There's a bit in there about someone who takes on Apple because Apple voids warranties if you try to fix your own technology. And so if you're trying to fix your phone and you crack it open, then it's void. And then there's like a tiny little bit at the end about how he wins some lawsuit or some legal action that allows, but like, you know, it would have been nice to go deeper on that.
Yeah.
Like you could have done a whole documentary on each one of the guests.
It would have been better as a series, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could have done each pillar as an episode, because I did notice, and I wrote it down, that like 40% of that documentary was just waste.
Oh my God.
Like the categories, if you look at the time split, I was just like, I kept thinking, did I miss the third category? It was like halfway through the movies, like, or more than halfway through the movies, like, here's the third one finally. They spent so much time on like the front of it. Granted, that is like probably the biggest problem, right?
Yeah, but to that point, it's like, if you're looking at it that way, how much of the movie was wasted then
Right.
with all of those all of those graphics that are meant to replicate AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you could have filled all of that with information instead of like a visual demonstration, but maybe it wouldn't have been as impactful. I don't know who the audience they were tailoring it to. Maybe they were trying to focus on like the TikTok era.
It felt very TikTok.
Well, and yeah, I also
and
feel like
no shade on those animators. Like, I'm sure that was the aesthetic, and it was done.
They did a good job.
Yeah, it was done well.
you animate what you're paid to animate, right?
Well. So,
sorry if did I derail your...
I have no idea where it went.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of the critiques I'm hearing from you guys are a lot of the ones that were online. So like paraphrase critiques from Reddit and IMDb. One was good entry-level doc, but not enough nuance for anyone who's already into the subject.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
So perfect.
That was my biggest critique where I was watching it and I was hoping to like, especially when they introduced the Amazon woman, I was like, ooh, this is going to be juicy, investigative. I love that. Nope. Didn't get it.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. I wanted it to be way more investigative, just based on like they had access to people who had worked at these giant corporations, and so I was expecting deep dives into like each of those things, but again, it was kind of a speed run.
It was regurgitating statistics.
Yeah, and another, because it reminded me of what you just said, another one that's paraphrased says, I wanted it to dive deeper into how corporations manipulate us beyond just shopping and the real economic systems behind it. So more like behind the curtain instead of like, I feel like they were trying to say like, oh, companies are hiding the waste, which they are, but they're also hiding the processes that lead to the waste.
To that critique, I would have liked to see more about how, what they said. Like, I want to see how corporations like not just manufacture the waste, but how do they, like, what's the impetus for it? Like, how do they decide, you know, the volume in which they need to create.
So fast fashion and planned obsolescence, those kind of fall into their like waste more, lie more, hide more categories, kind of like in between the selling and the disposal of the products. And that's something that we talk a lot about. And so what did you guys think of that framing in the film?
I think that was the most shocking thing was, again, the numbers. Can't even think about it. What I had wrote down a few of them that stuck out to me was 100 billion items of clothing are produced every year at a rate of 190,000 a minute.
Which, like, how much is that?
Right. I can't even wrap my head around that number. That's insane. 12 tons of plastic are produced every second. What is that? 25 million shoes an hour? 2.5 million shoes an hour? We throw away 13 million phones a day.
Why do we need to do that?
That's what? And the fact that that video also brought up planned obsolescence has been an industry standard for now 100 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, this is ingrained into us and our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. I mean, this is America now. We are planned obsolescence.
When will America be obsolete?
Hey, maybe it's that's what the PO and PO box stands for.
Planned obsolescence.
Yeah, it's where you get all your Amazon shit.
Oh. Comments on that, Ethan?
Just the amount of recycled waste that is not recycled, and then seeing the footage that they had of all of this stuff that's supposedly being repurposed or reused is just being boxed up into shipping containers and just like dumped somewhere. Is the volume like that they showed is really alarming.
It reminds me of wish cycling. When you like put something in the recycling and you're like, out of sight, out of mind, not my problem anymore. I did a good thing. Goodbye.
That's like the entirety of plastic is less than 10% of plastic is recycled. But what also blew my mind was how much new stuff they just throw away because it's doesn't make sense to either put it back into the
like the Easter candy and stuff that they just like
things like that.
away.
But I mean, even electronics and stuff, because it's most of the time for someone like Amazon, it's going to be cheaper to throw it in a dumpster than it is going to be to put it back into the inventory, because you have to have somebody or something do that. And it's usually just cheaper to throw it away and make a new one.
Like, we know that we're creating waste. I feel like everyone knows we're creating waste at this point. I hope. If you don't, you're not going to watch this video anyway. So,
and I say that because like I think it would be good for. I mean, I went to school for advertising, so like I know how this works, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think for people who like are less in the know about like, you know, well, Coca-Cola has these recycling bottles and like it must be good, and it's like, nope, that is false. Like, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that they could have explored deeper, not on the manufacturing side, but on like the like sociological, like psychological side of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another critique which resonated deeply with me, because I love solutions. I don't just want to hear about the problem. And I was upset that at the end they were just like, we should try harder. I was like, what?
That was like the last
that reminds me. It's what you were saying about like, oh, if you don't care or know about this stuff, you're not going to be watching it anyway. That's the problem.
Yes.
No one's going to do this. I mean, like 95% of the population doesn't care. That's why all of these producers and corporations are the ones that need to be held accountable, and why it's sickening that we're just gutting regulation in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Because, what they're doing is throwing gas on the fire right now. We're so far gone, it's probably too late already. And the people are going to keep buying because they've controlled us. And they've probably already won. Not to be too bleak.
So I think because of the way that they were like tailoring the movie to be like more fast paced, more like attention grabbing, and more like, I don't want to say cheesy, but like it was a little cheesy, to maybe like try and draw in people who wouldn't normally watch those things. And in that case, that would have been the perfect way to implement stronger calls to action, not just for individuals, but for corporations, industries, policies, regulations, like touching on all the things. Because the way it was framed, it was basically saying buy less, which we do need to reduce our consumption, but that also doesn't stop companies from producing everything.
Right, doesn't stop the manufacturing. Yeah. So
if we all just have like a boycott of shopping, like a buy nothing year, which I've heard some people propose, it's not realistic for the United States consumer economy and the way people are programmed. But like if you were to buy only the essentials and like not buy fast fashion, not buy new electronics, not buy all of those things would still exist because they already made them for the current consumer economy.
I mean, the whole thing was kind of outrage without comprehensible plan, which I feel like so many of these documentaries are. They're like, this is the problem, and then they end it like, what do we do?
Which, like, maybe we don't have a good answer.
We probably don't. And there's probably a lot of different answers.
And one of the issues that I think every person faces, what you said earlier about, like, you know, like a lot of people just don't know. Like they're so unaware that these. Not, I would assume that most people now know that waste and pollution and overconsumption is an issue, but I don't think the general population realize how severe it is.
Do they? I mean, they hear about it and then ignore it. I mean, then they order a truckload of freaking Amazon and every day.
Machine hauls online.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, how many unboxing channels are there? Like, Christ
oh my gosh,
almighty.
that's something that they should have touched on more is the influencer culture.
I realized that when they were in the documentary, they showed a whole bunch of fast clips of all these like unboxing, like fashion haul influencers. And I had like a little flash of like, oh my gosh, how, like, I have watched so many unboxing videos. Like, why? Like, there has to be... What is the reason that, like, we all, I mean, not that we enjoy them now, but at one point it was like, I mean, still.
I don't know. I think it tickles our just craving for, because of where we grew up, when we grew up. I love new shit. I mean, I think we can all say, like, I love it.
I love getting gifts.
I love getting that Amazon package. I'm not going to lie about it.
Yeah,
it makes me feel happy because that is the way. That is the way that my culture has programmed me, and that is the way it is. And we have to break that, and that's the hardest part.
This critique's really funny. It says it felt more like a TED Talk montage than a documentary.
Oh my god! Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
I don't know why that makes me laugh.
I will say that when the documentary, near the back half of the documentary, especially when they show the warehouses of things being shipped, you know, and the packaging and things like that, there is something about like us having grown up and living in more remote rural areas in the Midwest. And so like sometimes the only option you have if you need something is to Amazon it or buy it or ship it.
Oh yeah,
or
for sure. It's a utility for us. Yeah,
and so it's like a necessary depending on what you're getting, of course, but like
it's manufactured evil.
If there's an evil that you must do, like purchase something new or order something, you know, like, is there a way to ship it better so there's less waste when it comes in the mail? Because some of the unboxing videos we saw, it was just like cardboard and plastic and junk and tags and things that at the end of the day are unnecessary, or the food packaging in the section of the documentary where the woman goes down the aisles and shows that none of it can be recycled, and it's all a lie about, you know, the recycling logos on the packaging are fake, and even if they can be recycled, they just end up in a landfill anyways. Well, can't we just come up with a better system to house these items before they get to our hands?
I don't think it's so surface, and I think it needs to go way deeper. And it's because we have Amazon and Walmart, and those two are almost everything as far as consumer goods are, you know, like especially day-to-day goods. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those things that it needs to go back to sweeping anti-monopoly and antitrust laws that bring back, hey, we're in this little town. Back in the day, there was like 2-3 general stores in this town of 2,000 people, and you could get shit. Sometimes you'd have to wait, but we have to wait with Amazon here anyway. But if Amazon would, you know, get cut back a little bit, local stores could exist still.
Okay, well, think about...
It's almost like it's all connected and we just need to work together.
Oh my God. No, but what I was going to say before you interrupted me was... So Alex and I grew up in a bookstore, a used bookstore, and you want to know partially, I can't say entirely, what put it out of business? Amazon. and the rise of like the Kindle and the Nooks and the e-readers, because people weren't going to go and buy a used book anymore. People didn't really have books anymore to trade with the business. And then it just like became a sinkhole. Like they were putting too much money in, it took too much time, and they weren't making a profit, which I don't really know how much of a profit they were making before, but
I think what it mostly was it broke even, and then they had a private library.
Yes, which arguably
it was kind of neat.
beneficial. But that's what it reminds me of. Like you're putting small businesses out by adding a Walmart, or in a lot of rural areas, adding a Dollar General or a Dollar Tree, because like everyone's going to start going there because it's cheaper.
But the print media side of that too is, since Amazon is one of the biggest distributors of digital books, and now it is also getting physical copies of a book can be price prohibitive. And if you can pay 1/10 of that to have it with you at all times.
Or just go to your library.
Right. But I mean, that's why it's not a surface level of maybe we should be more strategic with warehouses. It's no, these companies are too fucking big and they're bloated, and no one else has anything that they can contribute because they're blocked out by like 5 companies. Right?
Yeah, the monopolization is not good.
And they made it too convenient. Like, how many people have an Alexa in their house and they're like, hey, Alexa, order a package of batteries. Or, hey, Alexa, I need a new water bottle.
So I was just checking my phone to make sure that you weren't ordering shit.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, that's it right there. That's the reality. That's how easy it is.
They have your card. So, like, you literally just say a sentence. Next day, it's at your door. Maybe same day if you live in a city.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the warehouses are. Have you never done that? I've never done it because I don't have an Alexa, but I have witnessed people doing it.
I do not have one.
I sometimes put items in people's carts that are hilarious. Like, I put a pinball machine into someone's cart with their Alexa once.
Just so it would sit there?
Yeah. I didn't buy it. I just put it in there to be like, oh.
You can or cannot put this in when you cut it, but onto the ease of use and like the dopamine hits that you get and they manufacture when online shopping. I recently watched a documentary on like online gambling, and there's like so much correlation between online shopping and online gambling, but there are laws now, and because online gambling is becoming such like a, I don't want to say epidemic, but maybe, can I say that?
Epidemic.
I don't know enough about online gambling.
I mean, it's become way more prolific.
Because it's becoming so prolific that their legislation is making things to help gambling addicts and you know, because you can get the app, you can log in your card information, and then you can watch a game and you can just bet your life away, right? Well, you know, it's so similar to the Amazon online shopping thing that you could almost compare online shopping to like the online gambling. And if there are rules and regulations for one thing, how come there aren't rules and regulations for the other?
Lobbying.
I'm very aware of why. I'm just saying, like, you know,
yeah, but basically
there should be checks and balances for these things, because we all live in the real world, right? Like, we all have used Amazon before, right? Like, it's not that, I mean, it is evil and a monopoly that needs to have some massive checks and balances and frankly just go away. But I just think that, you know, there just needs to be some sort of regulation to keep this stuff from getting to where it is. You know, if there were rules and regulations on consume or to help protect consumers 25 years ago, we hopefully wouldn't be where we are now. Yeah. And it's almost like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's just, you know, what do you do? It's already out. You know, the problem's already out of hand.
I'm so depressed.
I'm always surprised.
I mean, like,
Okay, so number 3, the Lime War, the woman from Amazon. I don't remember her name, but Marin. Okay,
I think.
She said, like, at the beginning of number 3, the Lime War, that people trust businesses over larger institutions, so like government. And I would argue that's probably true, which is why people voted for a businessman. A bad businessman.
Businessman. TV show
Businessman. A reality TV star. You can tell who I voted for, and if it makes you mad, good. Basically, I want to tie this back to PFAS in the outdoor industry. Who was doing anything before there was a regulation saying you can't sell this in the 5th largest economy, California, in the entire world? Maybe a handful. Keen, Fjallraven, Houdini.
Well, there's no reason for that. There's no punishment.
Exactly. So there's no punishment to Amazon for trashing the planet.
Well, and even just in the United States, like, how much do you think they pay in taxes versus how much damage do you think they do just to the road infrastructure delivering all of these packages in 2 hours? And so then that falls onto the federal, state, and local governments to pay for the mess that Amazon is making that they're not contributing to fix.
And why didn't the documentary talk about that?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question.
And to your guys' point about, you know, the bookstore and stuff, like, not only are these giant corporations having physical and environmental impacts with the amount of stuff that they're manufacturing and then wasting, like, you also have, like, the social and, like, community impacts as well, you know? Like, business goes out because they can't compete with the big box stores. Well, then that business is gone. That family is affected, which affects, you know,
I'm fired up.
tons and tons and tons of people, right? That business closes, and then another business closes, and then another business closes, and we've all seen it.
Downtowns and small towns.
Yeah, it eliminates the third space, like the communal space that people have.
Oh, for sure.
And so it, like, contributes to a fallout of, like, society in general, not just like the wasteland of the environment, but then, like, isolating people because
you're eliminating the social element because you don't have to leave your fucking chair,
which I love, but maybe that's bad.
Yeah.
Good times, everyone. I'm getting really agitated. Okay. So we talked a lot about, like, our critiques and things like that, and I do think that the film itself, we talked about it being too broad. Did we feel like it was too alarmist in any respect?
I don't know. Yes and no. I mean, I feel like some of the imagery was meant purely to be alarmist, but I also don't think they were alarmist enough because the gravity of this problem is just so big.
I think it's where they decided to be alarmist and not alarmist that
cherry picking.
Or where to put the impact of the story that they were telling, depending on who they were interviewing at the time. Again, like with the part about, like, the little cat videos or something, right? Like, it just totally sucks all the air out of, like, this very important topic that they were just talking about. And then you have a robot voice saying, here's something to, like, make you feel good real quick. And, like, I understand the direction of the satire, but again, I don't feel like these types of things should be satirical because not...
Right. And then they end it with that robot singing you a song.
Bad
Jesus
song.
Christ.
Oh.
How did we not talk about the song?
But I mean, you were just, like, on the cutesy side of things. Like, this
end,
is a big deal, and you're going to, like, do some spin on the Portal games in a worse version of it.
At the end of this documentary, an AI robot sings you a song about consumerism, and it is terrible, and it is awful, and that's the lasting impression you get about this 90-minute documentary about how terrible waste and consumerism is, and you see the ocean full of plastics and beaches full of shoes, and you see workers in third world countries and more impoverished communities who have to like break down these recyclables, and it's toxic and harmful and causing all sorts of these terrible, like the despair goes on and on and on. And then it leaves you with the worst AI sung song you've ever heard in your life. Now I'm real fired up. I forgot about the song.
I forgot about that. Was the surprise.
I am triggered.
The worst surprise.
Oh yeah, well, and that was the.
I was so excited.
To me, it was another Portal reference. If you're not familiar with Portal, it was a Valve game in like 2007, and there's this AI that is controlling like your every move, and she comes off as really nice in the beginning, and there's this overarching theme in the game, and it's the cake is a lie. You find out, and that's like your reward in the game is the cake.
Oh.
And so at the end of the
cake.
documentary, they're like, "Oh, there was no surprise." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's the cake is a lie."
Mm-hmm. The cake is a lie. That's a good parallel. I was gonna say something about that.
I'm sorry. The song fired me up because I just think it does so much damage to the message that you've been trying to share the whole time, and then to turn the last 30 seconds of the film into like a TikTok, like doesn't do it.
I did like the last line of the song where it's like, I have no regrets or something like that. And that's not what she said, but there was something about not having remorse about what was created. And I think a lot of big corporations, they feel that way. Like Coca-Cola, Amazon, Elon Musk, all of those people, like they don't care about the damage that they're creating. They care that they're making money. And
just look at the Doge program. That's just about giving people high up.
Said Elon Musk.
I know, fuck that guy.
But yeah, the Doge program.
And I think, yeah, the I regret nothing, where like they don't.
When you have that much money, you don't have to regret anything.
No.
There's no consequence.
Okay, so I feel like we're getting a little stressed out, so we should probably wrap it up. I do want to tie it a little bit back to the outdoor industry and basically like the impact that the industry has, because as much as individual action does make a difference, especially when it turns into collective action, at the end of the day, the industry has more power. And what companies are doing within their businesses and as a collective industry has a much larger impact than the three of us would if we all decided to boycott Coca-Cola,
right.
You know?
I think some of the outdoor brands do a better job than the general industry at end of life plans.
Like Nemo
with gear repair and what's going to happen to it. Fjallraven's pretty good at that too. I mean, I feel like that's something that definitely the outdoor industry might even be one of the only ones that actually thinks about that stuff. You know?
I feel like there has to be other examples.
Well, I'm sure the auto industry thinks about that kind of stuff too, because that's a lot of material to buy back, you know?
And so I want to think about, well, what in the outdoor industry is so similar to what we saw with H&M, Apple, Amazon, Adidas, all that. Well, arguably they're kind of borderline outdoor industry because they're like a sports brand, but they're also a fashion brand.
Well, I mean, so are sporting brands. I mean, or even industry regular brands. Look at Carhartt. Look at what's happened to that brand. I mean,
their dog coats are so cute.
See?
Exactly. I heard the
point. I mean, I don't know.
I just think, to compete with the monopolies, there's a danger for the outdoor industry brands to have to play by the big companies' rules. And, you can't compete when a mega corporation can do what you do at a fraction of the cost.
Right. Well, and at the end of the day, when the attitude is always to sell more and expand instead of just making a good product, it's always going to be the problem. Like the version of capitalism we live in is profits, 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 not, hey, I make the best shoes in town.
Yeah.
I mean, they say that after the fact, but the reality is they want to sell 1 million pairs of those shoes.
I think, and that's where I think like a lot of brands in the outdoor space, like that's where they can kind of start to win that fight.
Mhm.
Is, you know, we've all consumed enough now that we know that this company makes terrible shoes, or this company
Mhm.
makes terrible shirts, or I've got a backpack from this company once and it lasted 2 trips and I'm never buying from them again. And
Who was it?
nope.
Okay.
And so I think that the outdoor industry, those smaller companies can focus on, you know, the quality of their products. So when I buy one thing one time, I'm like, wow,
Mhm.
these are the best boots I've ever had, and they're gonna last a while, like a long time, and I'm gonna wear them until they completely fall apart, and then, you know, like, so that way I'm buying a great thing for 5, 10, 15 years versus buying something crappy
Every time.
all the
So
time.
what I hear you saying is you'd like to see brands implement a more circular economy instead of the linear
Mhm.
production model we now have.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the outdoor industry probably has a better up on that. Maybe, I mean, I'm sure there's other examples, but, you know, our wheelhouse and everything.
Yeah.
But the, like, items that you trust your life with, right? Like climbing equipment, you're probably
Yeah.
not going to buy on Temu,
I certainly hope not.
right? So it's
Challenge accepted.
those brands, they have like these things like Black Diamond, they make really good, high quality, long lasting equipment. But they probably also make a few throwaway t-shirts here and there, don't they?
Yeah, like how much do you need to expand your brand?
Mhm.
Because like there are a lot of cottage brands that start very specialty and then they branch out because they need to broaden their profit margins, and then they end up like their original like flagship product is still amazing, but then all these other pillars are like,
Mhm.
was this
Profits.
necessary?
Profits.
Was this necessary? Probably not. And that's my biggest qualm with a lot of like the big outdoor brands. You can think of who they are, and they don't need to be producing as much as they're producing, because like as much as they lean into the environmental messaging and as much as they're like stewards and advocates for the
Mhm.
earth and giving 1% to the planet, whatever the heck they're doing that is positive, they're still creating, they're still extracting, and they're still producing waste in a way that doesn't allow us to get out of the climate crisis,
Right.
because you can't capitalize.
Carbon offsetting doesn't forgive the fact that you still have something to offset.
Exactly. So like
Like, we're still making all that shit. I don't care if you planted 1 million trees. There's 1 million, like, they think, what is it? In 25 years, there will be more plastic in the ocean by weight than fish? Or is that 2040?
I don't know. We can look it up later.
But I mean, and there's like a teaspoon of plastic in our brains.
Plastic.
So, I mean, I don't know. I feel so helpless. Not to be too bleak about it, but
I will say, if you do want like more solutions oriented content, like our normal podcast interviews do focus on solutions. So that's
yeah.
that's not this discussion. I'm not,
That's why we talk to experts.
yes, I'm not an expert. I just ask a lot of questions. Is there anything else you guys want to share? I feel like that's pretty good. I feel like we talked a lot. Any other key takeaways?
I think like overall this probably wasn't like my favorite documentary on this topic, but it may be like a good introduction for somebody who's just not as familiar.
Yeah, if they're just learning about the
If it
problem.
wasn't TVMA, that would be a good thing to show in schools.
It was MA.
Yeah, if it wasn't
Why?
TV.
What made it that way? The swearing?
A couple F-bombs here and there.
That's so annoying.
No, I think all the kids should learn to say fucking.
That's true. That's fair. And honestly, get over it. But I think it's a good message, like he said, for people.
Like intro.
I think there's a couple images in there that the real footage that they show is very impactful. There are a couple beach scenes with tons of pollution that hit really hard for me. And then I also think that the documentary did a good job of highlighting, while they could have gone way deeper, it was nice to see that you have people from these large corporations realizing that changes do need to be made.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's nice to know that you're not alone, and there are people with some voice and some say who are trying to do things.
It
and
does feel a little too late.
I think that's the control factor they were trying to lean on, though. It's just like, it's kind of like when you're in a cult, you don't always see, or like an abusive relationship. It's hard to see it when you're in it. And then when you remove yourself from it, you're like, wow, how did that happen to me?
But I feel like because control was the fifth and final thing that they brought up, they really could have dove more into corporations have the control, which means they can fucking fix it.
Right.
So do it. Not all of us can afford to fly to the moon on our own.
Why would you?
Do you want to live here?
I want to live on the moon.
Well, you know, at least it'd be quick.
And that's a wrap. Well, at least it'd be quick. I'll take my helmet off in space.
Thanks for listening. And if you like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram at outdoor.minimalist.book, on YouTube, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter at theoutdoorminimalist.com. For even more updates, other educational resources, and to help build an outdoor community with the shared goal to create a better outdoor space as we recreate.